Okay, let's talk about navigating the GUI and all the different patient data that's being displayed, as well as making some of your ventilator settings. So I'm really just going to walk from the GUI top down and kind of cover everything. So we are ventilating the patient. You know that because right in the very top left is a big C that will illuminate during the inspiratory phase. The C is to let you know what breath type it is, meaning that is the controlled breath type. Remember, we chose assist control, so this is your mandatory breath or control breath. Should the patient be assisting or actively breathing, you now see the letter A to indicate that's an assisted or patient-triggered breath. You can see that from far across the room and get an idea of who's breathing actively and who isn't. From left to right are 7 parameters. Always in this order, and those parameters are your P-peak or peak pressure, your mean airway pressure, measured PEEP, IE ratio, total frequency, exhaled tidal volume, exhaled minute volume. Earlier, when we were setting up the ventilator, I told you to look down at the bottom left. This is the coaching box area on the bottom right. I want your eyes down here for a moment. Anytime you touch the symbol, or excuse me, the letters, you notice I have my fingers over the word PEEP. It's defined for you what PEEP is. Now, that's probably a little too simple. I think you know what PEEP is. But something like F-tote might be some new nomenclature to you. And F-tote equals total respiratory rate. So that means that's machine plus anything your patient might be doing. So you should see F-tote increasing now as I trigger that lung over there a little bit. That touch and translate function is available all over the ventilator. So earlier I said if you get lost on this machine, you can always touch something and hold it and it will reveal itself for you. So that O2 that I'm showing you right now, that's your analyzed oxygen. That very well may be a different number than your set oxygen. Okay, so what type of breath? Patient values are on top. There's some fine print here to let you know the circuit type. We SST'd it as an adult. Your humidification type is HME. If you remember, we did that earlier. You've got time and date up here as well. So now I'm in this area. If you'll focus here, this is the space available for ventilator graphics. We show as many as 2 waveforms at any given time. You can plot setup here, configure that to 1 waveform if you wish to do that. Right, and then you can use these cursors, whether y-axis or x-axis, to really kind of start to zoom in on the breath and get a good look at it from a waveform perspective. Sweep speed goes as short as 3 seconds, so you get a real good look at each breath, and all the way out to 48 seconds and have many of them march on the screen. I'm going to leave it at a 6 seconds. It's just a nicer view for me. I'm going to do that one more time. Plot setup. The bottom curve, or plot 2, I want my flow curve back, and so now you can see pressure and flow respectively. Don't want to see any graphics? If that's an issue for you, you can tap this button right here and they go away. So that your graphics are on, your graphics are off. The second button from left, down here in this little bar area, is what we call the clipboard. There may be some additional information that we didn't have space for on the top data banner. So as I showed you earlier, oxygen, end inspiratory pressure. Here's a button, respiratory mechanics, to give you heads-up display of things like dynamic compliance and airway resistance and peak expiratory and end expiratory flow. Now, I know what those things mean. If you don't know what they mean because it's a new machine to you, I've told you a few times now, you can simply put your finger over that and it tells you EEF equals end expiratory flow. So you really can teach yourself the machine fairly easily by just touching something and it reveals or defines itself down below. Okay, so that's the clipboard. The third button is the logs or memory. The machine is constantly taking notes of things that happen, such as an alarm log. So the machine hasn't been running very long. I only have 4 alarms on the page, but the machine, the 840, can hold as many as 80 alarm events. It is a first in, first out, so the 81st stays on top and the first alarm would disappear. There's a cursor here. Boy, I'm going to need a lot more alarms to really stack up that page. Anyway, I can't do it. There's a cursor that you can tap. It would turn orange, and you can roll back in time and kind of do some investigation what sort of alarms have been occurring while you have not been in a room. So that's what this button's for. The fourth button is for additional alarms. I'll explain that in just a little bit. The fifth button is what we're going to call other screens, and honestly there's more diagnostic things or machine hours, right, kind of PM things that are on this. I don't know that much is here clinical. Diagnostic codes, in other words, if the machine shot some sort of an error code that was important in terms of triaging what's wrong with the ventilator, you would go here. Operational time, right? Somebody has to be responsible for how many hours is on the machine. It makes me think about preventive maintenance. 840's preventative maintenance is Q 10,000 hours. So whenever the ventilator has 10,000 operational hours on it, give Puritan Bennett a call. Our field service engineers are happy to come out and do the preventive maintenance for you. Okay, and that's really it for that button. Not much clinical between these two. And then finally on the right-hand side is our trending page. I will cover that in its own little video. And another button reserved for trending. So, graphics, clipboard, alarm log. That's really what you're going to play with most here on this area. So that's patient information, waveforms, how to scale your waveforms, right, up and down, as well as a sweep speed for many or very few breaths.